Get ready for the next battle.
Hello, I'm Dr. the Robotic. Last time we took a look at Tekken 1 and 2, which, despite those games showing their age, they're still interesting footnotes in history, especially Tekken 2, which is a fun game despite its age. Now, we're going to be looking at Tekken 3. This game's reputation precedes itself, and I believe you can argue this game needs no introduction. But we're going to give it one anyway. Let's see how well this game holds up, and see if it's still the King of Iron Fist. With Tekken 2 being such a massive hit, a Tekken 3 was all but inevitable at that point. However, shortly after Tekken 2 was finished, director Seiichi Ishii left Namco to join Square to work on other games such as Tobu No. 1, Guys, God Bless the Ring, and The Bouncer. Namco then promoted employee Katsuhiro Harada as the director of Tekken 3, a role that has stuck since. Under Harada's vision, Tekken 3 is to break new grounds by having bigger, better graphics and massive gameplay innovations, alongside a focus on a new generation of fighters, which was the style of the time as seen by Street Fighter 3 New Generation and Garou, Mark of the Wolves. Tekken 3 was developed on new arcade hardware, the Namco System 12, which was much more beefy than the prior System 11, achieving some of the best 3D graphics at the time, only rivaled by games like Virtua Fighter 3. Tekken 3 was internationally released in arcades in March 1997. Tekken 3 was so much of a graphical leap that Namco feared that they may not be able to port Tekken 3 to home consoles. However, they were able to successfully compress the graphics down enough by turning the backgrounds back to 2D panoramic images like in Tekken 1 and 2, and reducing the polygon count in the characters, and lowering the resolution, making a PlayStation port absolutely certain. As a result, Tekken 3 made its home console debut in March 26, 1998 in Japan, April 29, 1998 in North America, and September 12, 1998 in Europe, to massive commercial and critical success, selling 8.36 million copies on the PS1, becoming the PS1's 5th best-selling game of all time, and receiving near-perfect scores across the board. Many to this day consider Tekken 3 to be one of the PS1's best games alone, and arguably the best Tekken of all time, but we'll be the judge of that. Before we get to that, let's take a look at that lore. 15 years after Heihachi Mishima took back the Mishima Zaibatsu back from Kazuya, he immediately formed the PMC known as the Tekken Force. With the Tekken Force, he ended up achieving world peace. But this hid a sinister purpose. You see, the Tekken Force were secretly under orders to find a temple somewhere in Mexico that contains a large treasure. What they instead found was a mysterious creature known only as Ogre, who then slaughtered the entire unit. Heihachi then went to investigate and found out that Ogre is the legendary god of fighting, known to many as Toshin, and sought to capture him to use his power to attain immortality and eventually take over the world.
Of course!
After Ogre's release, he went around attacking several martial artists around the globe to absorb their power. One day, Heihachi receives a visit from a 15-year-old boy named Jin Kazama, the son of Kazuya Mishima and Jun Kazama. Jin explains that in his quiet home at Yakushima, Jun felt the presence of Ogre approaching her, and warned to Jin that if something were to ever happen, he is to seek out his grandfather. Jin attempted to fight off Ogre when he eventually arrived, but he was knocked out. When he came to, he noticed his home burnt down to the ground, and that his mother was nowhere to be found. Assuming the worst had happened, he sought out Heihachi Mishima to achieve training. Heihachi then took Jin in and decided to raise him, treating him much better than he did Kazuya, even enrolling Jin into his own private school where he studied mechanical engineering, and he would teach the boy Mishima-style karate. This was not out of atonement, however, but rather he had ulterior motives. During this time, Jin befriended a young girl named Ling Xiaoyu, and became entangled with a street punk named Huarang. Once Jin had turned 19 years old, Heihachi felt the time was right, and announced the King of Iron Fist 3 with a large cash prize, intending to use the tournament to lure Ogre out in the open. Jin enters the tournament without hesitation in hopes of facing what he assumes to be his mother's killer. During the tournament, Jin ends up facing off Huarang and defeats his rival with ease. Eventually, Ogre shows up to fight the ultimate champion of the tournament, but ends up being trounced by the toughest in the universe. That's right, Paul Phoenix ends up taking Ogre to the cleaners and went through the entire tournament undefeated. This is why Paul's the coolest character in Tekken. Satisfied, Paul heads off into the night, with victory well assured that he is indeed the tough. Wait, what do you mean that's not the end? Okay. Yeah, Paul only thought he won. In reality, he left before Ogre transformed into his final form, True Ogre. which Jin is more than happy to take Paul's place to fight. Despite this boost in strength, Jin triumphs over True Ogre, killing him then and there. Jin's victory is short-lived, however, as Heihachi decides that Jin has outlived his usefulness, and gets executed by a firing squad for his troubles, with Heihachi delivering the coup de grace with a gunshot to the head. This ends up being his biggest mistake yet, as this ends up triggering the Devil Gene within Jin Kazama, awakening Devil Jin. He then proceeds to more bowl over Heihachi and fly off into the night, disappearing without a trace. During the tournament, a capoeira fighter named Eddie Gordo also found out the man that killed his parents is none other than Kazuya Mishima, and there's a possibility that despite the improbability, he may have survived the attempt on his life. We also get some silly endings since Tekken and humor goes like peanut butter and more peanut butter. And we still don't have anything stupid like
Anytime, any place, bring it on, you aliens!
As you can see here, this game is a time skip for 19 years. There's old friends, new friends, and even a bear. Our returning fighters have clearly been aged, but they still kick as much ass as they did in their prime, especially Heihachi, where despite being 73, age clearly hasn't slowed down the old bastard at all. Our new generation of fighters is also pretty badass as well, such as the scrappy street fighting punk Warring, who brings his own spin to Taekwondo and uses a more dynamic version of it compared to his master Baekdo-san, and Eddie Gordo was one of the best depictions of capoeira yet, even bringing the martial art to the mainstream. This new generation approach, unlike for games like Street Fighter 3 or Soul Calibur 5, ended up actually working in this game's favor, as these new characters clearly struck a chord with players, and for some characters like Kazuya, Michelle, and Martial Law, we got some decent successors for them like Jin Kazama, Julia Chang, and Forest Law, ensuring that people that made them in prior games still had their mains. Jin is interesting to discuss, as unlike his father Kazuya, Jin is a genuinely heroic Mishima, and has some rad as fuck costumes as well. He's certainly a worthy successor to his old man. We also got some creative new characters as well, such as Brian Fury, a new rival to Super Comp Lei Wulong, who was killed in a shootout, but revived as a cyborg zombie that's batshit insane and nigh invulnerable. Ever since this game, he's been an absolute staple due to his demented personality. Now onto the presentation. Despite the downgraded graphics from the arcade version, this game looks fucking sick as hell on the original PlayStation. The 3D graphics look extremely smooth for the time, and the animations for their time are super top-notch. This game, I believe, was the first to use motion capture for the animations of the series, and it looks fantastic and brings a great amount of personality for the cast. The CG cutscenes are back, but this time they look really damn good, with barely a hint of age at all. The only render that looks kinda off is Xiaoyu, but she's clearly intended to be the youngest character, and they were still kind of getting that look right. But everything else looks really great. The intro of this game alone is one of the best fighting game intros I've ever seen, and is always a never skip intro. It's that good. For an idea how good this game's CGI cutscenes are, let me show you a cutscene from another game that came out in 1998 known as Twisted Metal 3.
So, Sweet Tooth, your wish is to eat all the candy and ice cream you want? Your wish is granted. You should have brushed between snacks. I am Calypso, and I thank you for playing Twisted Metal.
If it isn't obvious, I hate this fucking game. But I love me some Tekken 3. And something of this game I also really love is the soundtrack to this game. It is really fucking good, but it has more of a rock emphasis this time, which complements the game very well. Namco truly brought their A-game for this game's presentation without a doubt. Now let's talk gameplay, which has seen massive innovations. Tekken 3 for starters decided to up the speed up heavily, allowing for much faster battles. Tekken 3 also remembered that these are 3D fighters, and implemented a sidestep, which allows for true 3D combat. By tapping up or down quickly, you can dodge in either direction and counterattack. This little change ends up becoming such a massive game changer, and ends up giving Tekken its signature mobility, which makes this series my favorite 3D fighter of choice, as this mobility feels so damn good. In fact, due to Tekken 3's innovations, Top players in Korea ended up discovering a unique defensive maneuver based on backward dashes that can be easily cancelled into a crouch. This became known as the Korean backdash, which has been a staple of most Tekkens ever since. This game's movement isn't the only thing that's improved, however, as the combat's gotten even better as well. Everyone's got a lot more cool tools to play with, which makes everyone feel even stronger to play. And the damage actually feels pretty reasonable. Yeah, Paul still shits out massive counter damage, but that's built into his game plan and it's his niche. He shits out big damage if you fuck up. Oos! But it's a lot more reasonable than it is in Tekken 2. We also have increased emphasis on reduction of clones here, as the only clones in this game are Gunjack and Kuma and Jin and Heihachi, and even then, they possess unique moves of their own and their own game plans. The new martial arts brought to the table with Ling Xiaoyu's Pi Kwa Kwan and Eddie's Capoeira is also a sight to see. It makes them very unique to play. And for the record, Eddie's not broken, you just suck at Tekken. We also have a fun Mimic fighter here with Mokujin, who randomizes his moveset every match, making him the excellent choice for experts to style with. Every character here feels fun to play, and a lot of the characters really start to come into their own here, such as Yoshimitsu getting crazier stances such as the Flea, Lei Wu Long uses more of his 5-form Kung Fu, and Heihachi gets more signature tools such as Demon's Breath, which is an excellent tool of his. As far as the arcade difficulty goes, it's not too bad at all here. Hell, even Heihachi and Ogre are pretty reasonable fights as far as difficulty goes. Not a total anticlimax, but they're far from SNK boss territory at all, though the Ogres can be nasty in the right hands. Unlocks are done a bit different in this game, where you just unlock a new character when you finish the arcade mode. Doesn't matter who you play either, though you can't use the same character twice. Though two characters require alternative methods, and I'll get to that in a bit. You still get the returning modes from Tekken 2 alongside new modes, Tekken Ball and Tekken Force. Tekken Ball is a very fun side mode where you can play some extreme beach volleyball before Dead or Alive took a stab at it, minus the very obvious softcore porn connotations. It's a pretty fun side mode and one of the easiest ways to unlock God, who is Tekken's very first guest character, predating Akuma, Geese-Howard, and Negan. Tekken Force is a mode that basically transplants Tekken's gameplay into a side-scrolling beat-em-up like Final Fight or Streets of Rage. And despite this usually being a recipe for a disaster, it ends up working out well here as a fun little side mode. When you beat it 4 times, you face off with Dr. Boskonovich, and if he's beaten, you unlock him for regular play. Now, despite my constant praise for this game, and this praise is certainly well earned, there are some flaws. For starters, the stages still are endless. This has never been an issue before due to how limited Tekken's movement was, but now, to avoid some contact, people will backdash repeatedly to keep some distance. And due to the stage lacking any boundaries or ring outs, there's no way to really pressure your opponent. This isn't a full issue here, but it'll come up again soon, so keep that in mind. God and Dr. B are also absolute bastards to fight due to their hitboxes being pretty tiny, because God is just tiny, and Dr. Boskonovich has a really bad back that keeps them on the ground. And last but not least, while I love this game's roster, I do have a few complaints about a few missions, such as no Li Xiaolane, as he was pretty cool and stylish to play as, and Judd's mission feels like they initially had no idea what to do with her. However, I'm pretty sure we'll have that resolved with Tekken 8 since she's actually back, which is kinda cool, I guess. Not the biggest Judd fan, but hey, I know a lot of people like her, and that's fine. Despite these flaws though, Tekken 3 is a damn good time, and absolutely one of the finest 3D fighters ever made. It's a game you absolutely must play if you want to look at the PS1 library, and it has damn well earned its reputation. Tekken 3 earns an 8 out of 10. Wait. An 8 out of 10 is a great score. That means I really love the game. Put those pitchforks away. Yes, I do think Tekken 3 is the best in the series. However, I would like to point out that's when Tekken started to become awesome, so really don't take this the wrong way. Tekken 3 is a great game, and I don't even think it's like, I'm not even trying to be a contrarian, like, I think it's a very, very, very good game. But it just has a few flaws that a few other later Tekkens would improve. But Tekken 3 set those building blocks, so it still deserves a reverence. It's just not the best Tekken, but I can see why a lot of people consider it their favorite. And evidently, even Namco felt the game could use some improvements, as a year later, in arcades, we had Tekken Tag Tournament show up in arcades, which was basically like Tekken 3, but with a boatload of new content. Eventually, it was ported as a PS2 launch title, and to the PS3 as part of the Tekken Hybrid package, which also contains a Tekken Tag 2 demo, and a movie called Tekken Blood Vengeance. Let me know if you want to review the movie someday, that's interesting. Despite Tekken 3's innovation, it seemed that some of the new generation of fighters might have alienated longtime fans, especially fans of Kazuya Mishima. Namco decided that they may as well compromise with Tekken Tag Tournament, which was released as both its own cabinet and upgrade kit for arcades in 1999, with Kazuya front and center on all promotional materials. It was then ported as a launch title in 2000 for the PS2, where it took great advantage of the hardware to make such a massive leap in visuals, similar to that of the Dreamcast port of Soul Calibur. The game was released a commercial and critical success, though still shy of Tekken 3's monumental success, though I'd attribute that to not being the true Tekken 4, but rather a Dream Match spin-off. Tekken Tag Tournament has no story to speak of, as it's a Dream Match game. Basically, everyone from Tekken 1 through 3 is here to throw down, and we got an original final boss with Unknown, who is a mimic fighter similar to Mokujin, though she only copies average-sized fighters. Makes sense as her using Jack's throws would look absurd. She was originally intended to be the sister of Jun Kazama before just being Jun herself as revealed by Tag 2. Despite the lack of story, we got plenty of nods for hardcore Tekken fans, such as special intro and win poses depending on the teams you build, where you get unique character interactions. Now let's get on to presentation. I know I'm looking at the HD version, but hot damn does this game still look fucking amazing still some 20 years later. It definitely shows the jump in power of the PS2 very well, alright, to the point where the characters' mouths move. Yes, that used to be a big deal back then. The stages also get a big blow up as well, as we actually have fully 3D backgrounds, and we got some spectators for some of the fights. These are fairly busy locales, however the limitless stages start to look a bit off here, and a few stages look kinda off with it. Notably, Paul and Nita's stages look very awkward with the infinite backgrounds, but other stages like Yoshimitsu's or the school look great. The opening is also really damn good and still holds up excellently as well, with some of the best CGI of all time as well. The endings, barring Unknown, are all in real time, but unlike the CGI endings, these endings fucking suck. Here, let me show you Hwoarang's ending. That fucking song plays in every ending barring Unknown's. Hell, the animations feel kinda cheap and there's no voice interactions with the cast, so it feels hollow. At least you got a funny ending with Ganryu, where despite the amount of money he donates to Michelle's OnlyFans, she rejects his sorry ass on the spot, leaving the sumo sip to wallow in his misery. On the bright side, we don't have any endings like...
Anytime, any place, bring it on, you aliens!
The music is also some of Tekken's best yet, as every stage has one damn good song. The voice acting is still the same grunts from 1 through 3 though, so don't get too cozy. This is the last time we hear most of these old grunts anyway. If the title hasn't tipped you off yet, it takes advantage of the large roster by being a tag team fighting game. Unlike other tag team fighters, fights are decided by rounds, and if one of your fighters is KO'd, you lose the round. This adds an element of risk, as you need to be very careful with your fighters. Also, this game uses the Netsu system, where a character takes a certain amount of damage, you'll notice your partner's health bar start flashing. This indicates your partner is enraged and their damage is buffed. It mostly takes usually 5 hits to get someone into Netsu, but some characters don't have Netsu like Jack 2, and some Netsu will change, such as Paul getting enraged in less hits, if Law is taking damage, Nita needing 7 hits for Anna to get enraged, or Heihachi will never be enraged no matter how many hits Kazuya takes, because he fucking hates him. Despite this, Netsu isn't a total game breaker, and some teams can do very well in spite of low Netsu, such as Team Mishima, Team Ogre, etc. If you really dig deep into this game, you can also learn some really cool as fuck tag combos, which help extend the pain and some juggles. They're very difficult to learn, but awesome to master and add a lot of depth to this fantastic game. We also have tag throws, which are also cool as shit. Though sadly Kazuya and Devil can't do a tag throw if they're paired up, as this game integrates their tag into a transformation. Though this also ends up making his tag out unsafe to do as it can be interrupted. But I do like that attention to detail considering Devil and Kazuya are the same person essentially. But it would have been better if they ignored it just like what they did for both Ogres, just for the sake of gameplay balance, or gave it its own unique input if you really wanted it. As far as the arcade mode is concerned, this time it's about average in difficulty again, with Unknown being an easy final boss, honestly. The only tricky thing is that she heals her red life since she has no one to tag out with, and it's a one-round battle. But she will switch movesets during the fight to at least add some challenge, so keep an eye on her. Once you beat the arcade mode about 10 times, or you're just playing the Tekken Hybrid like I am and have everything unlocked from the start, you unlock the Tekken Bowl mode, which, let me just say, I spent a lot of time with this mode as a kid. This mode is addictive as hell. It's just a really basic bowling simulator, but there's nothing wrong with it, and it's just funny seeing characters like Brian Fury decide to take up bowling. It helps that some silly shit will happen, such as the overcharge. If you're also feeling like a dick, Dr. Voskonovich is in the audience, and yes, you can KO him. Side note, I also love the little nod here. If you're playing a character like the Jacks, they'll have a special interface with their own HUD, which I think is pretty cool and a nice attention to detail. Competitively, this game was pretty good. It had a good run at places like EVO, but this is also where the limitations of the Limitless just start to really show. Tekken Tag has a lot of strong teams with game-breaking potentials like Team Ogre or Team Mishima. So people just constantly backdash away to avoid getting hit, and they wait till their opponent fucks up, and then they capitalize on it big time. Nothing too big for casual play sessions, but I can see Namco feeling that this would become an issue at some point, as corner pressure in this game is non-existent. Not to mention that some characters in this game cannot catch up at all, like Prototype Jack, who is the absolute worst character in the game, where almost all of his moves have terrible frame data and poor damage for his combos. In fact, I would make an argument that 12 from Third Strike is a more viable character than Prototype Jack. And then we all know how much 12 sucks. I suppose that's a price to pay for everyone is here. There's also the fact that while they have taken steps in making sure that most characters play unique from one another, here we have Kazuya and Jin, where Jin is basically Kazuya plus, as he has a few extra moves that Kazuya doesn't, making Kazuya kind of redundant, but good backup if you need to bench Jin for a bit, which made Team Mishima a frequent sight at tournaments. Not to mention that this game has 5 Jack clones with Gun Jack, Jack 2, Prototype Jack, Ganryu, and Kuma. Yeah, they have exclusive moves, but they still mostly play heavily like Jack, so this has gotten out of hand. It doesn't help that Kuma and especially Prototype Jack aren't very good competitively either. Also, Poe's low tier in this game, and that's a fucking crime. Though considering how many characters we've gotten here, I can excuse the poor balance as most characters, barring Prototype Jack, can do alright with a good partner, and they're mostly fun to play as well. It's also cool to have a Dream Match game, which is always a good time to celebrate the series with some good fun. Despite the balance issues, this game is absolutely fun as hell, and an outright high point for the series up to this point. With that, Tekken Tag Tournament gets a 9 out of 10. So yeah, Tekken Tag was an awesome launch title for the PlayStation, and considering it had games like SSX and Dead or Alive 2 Hardcore that it had to go against, it did very well for itself and carved out its own niche. Now, I think we're really good and we know what to do. Hang on, what is that? Is that my phone ringing? Yeah? What do you mean I forgot something? Oh right, Tekken Advance was a thing. Let's talk about that real quick. Tekken Advance was a portable spin-off for Tekken released for the Game Boy Advance. As far as the plot concerned, it's just loosely based on Tekken 3, but there's no actual story, so not a big deal. Graphically, it looks pretty alright for a pseudo 3D fighter on the GBA. It does a decent job for the handheld for translating Tekken into a 2D presentation. The music took a bit of a hit, but considering the GBA audio, getting something great took a great mastery of the GBA sound chip, so I'm not going to be too hard here. As far as gameplay is concerned, it's just a stripped down Tekken 3, which is fair as this is the GBA, there's limitations. And they did a pretty good job being as faithful as possible. We still got plenty of moves, some juggles, and even sidestepping, making it a true 3D fighter on the handheld, which is kinda cool. It's a pretty alright portable entry, and it's a neat curiosity, but nowadays, it's all it is. There's really no reason to go back and play this unless you just want to take a look at it, as it's just passable. This was pretty cool for the time, and it would have probably entertained me if I was younger, but nowadays, this game serves zero purpose if you ask me. Especially because you just get a Steam Deck and bring Tekken 7 on the go. It's like going back to Mario Kart Super Circuit. This was pretty cool at the GBA at the time, but there's really no point in looking at it outside of sheer curiosity. With that, my score for this is a 5 out of 10.
Is that your best?
So yeah, that was Tekken 3. We had a lot of awesome games. We had Tekken 3, we had Tekken Tag, and we had an alright handheld showing, but hey, it was pretty cool for the time, so I'm not going to fault it too much. It's functional, but it's not bad. It's not great, but it did its job at the time, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people were impressed with it then. So now...
Miss me?
What do you want?
I saw you talking about Tekken, and I just came to...
Already have a copy.
Wait. Then play it.
Cannot wait. I'm going to Frosty Falsings as soon as this video uploads. And I have to review Guilty Gear X.
I suppose I could do that for now, as you two seem like you want to discuss 4. Perfect. I'll be on my merry way then. I need to go pick up the new volume of Rent a Girlfriend anyways. And I need to compete in the Fantasy Strike Tournament at Frosty Falsings as well. My Onimaru is the fucking strong!
Alright, sweet! Anyway, join us next time as we discuss Guilty Gear X and the Guilty Gear XX series next time on Dr. Arthur Robotic. This is Dr. Arthur Robotic. I will be seeing y'all next time. If you like this content, please like, comment, subscribe, share it to your friends. And if you want to, please consider donating to my Patreon to help financially support me and help upgrade my equipment so I can keep making better content for y'all. Have a nice day, everybody.